The scream sliced through the freezing night like a blade. It wasn't a scream of pain. It was the sound of something, someone, breaking. Kara dropped the mug in her hands. It shattered against the wooden floor of the cabin. Outside, the snow kept falling, silent and undisturbed. Inside, her heart was racing like it knew something her mind hadn't caught up with yet. The scream had come from the woods, from his direction. She didn't even grab a coat, just slipped on the nearest boots, heart pounding in sync with the wind as she tore open the door and ran into the snow, leaving the warmth and safety behind. What she found in the trees, under the dim halo of her flashlight, would never leave her. He was on his knees, hands covered in something dark, eyes wide, staring at nothing, and carved into the snow in front of him, a message written in blood. Hours earlier, Kara and Seth weren't the kind of couple that posted smiling selfies in front of fireplaces. Their love had always been a little jagged, intense, private, the kind people didn't understand. The weekend trip to the mountain cabin wasn't supposed to be romantic. It was supposed to be healing. After everything they'd lost, after the miscarriage, after the fight that ended with a broken lamp and a shattered mirror, after the cold silence that lasted 4 weeks, the cabin belonged to Seth's uncle, one of those old, isolated hunting retreats that had no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, and definitely no road service during a snowstorm. Kara had hesitated, but Seth insisted, "We need this, just you and me, no phones, no drama." At first it had worked, hot cocoa, a shared blanket, even laughter, until Kara found the photo, tucked inside a book on the cabin shelf. A woman she didn't recognize, wrapped in Seth's arms, smiling, the date on the back, just 3 weeks ago, while they were supposed to be figuring things out. Confrontation. "You lied to me," Kara said, holding up the photo. Her voice was low, too low. Seth blinked at it. "What is this? I should be asking you that." He took the picture, stared at it for a long moment, then laughed, but it wasn't amused. It was hollow. "That's not real." Kara stepped back. "You're telling me someone faked a photo of you?" He didn't answer. He just stared into the fire. "You shouldn't have come here." Something about the way he said it made her stomach twist. The first night, footprints, Kara couldn't sleep. Not after that. Not after the way Seth had disappeared into the woods after their argument, not saying where he was going. He came back hours later, silent, his clothes damp, his eyes unreadable. She should have left then. But the snowstorm had blocked the road. Her phone was dead, the landline cut, no signal. She sat by the window with a blanket, watching the snow fall. And that's when she saw it. Footprints, not Seth's. Too small. And too many. They circled the cabin. Morning. Something's missing. When Kara woke up, Seth was gone. Again. But this time, his boots were still by the door. His coat still hung on the hook. There were drops of water in the hallway. A few smears of something dark on the doorknob. And one more thing. The photo she'd found. Gone. Noon. The voice in the snow. Kara stepped outside, wrapping a scarf tight around her mouth. She called his name, over and over. No answer. Until a voice, her own name, echoed faintly from deep in the trees. Kara, it wasn't panicked. It wasn't even loud. It was cold. Wrong. Like someone had practiced saying her name but had never truly felt it. She ran anyway. Into the woods. Present. The scene in the snow. And that's where she found him, kneeling, hands soaked red, eyes glassy. The message carved in the snow in front of him. "I told you she'd come." Kara staggered back. "Seth, what did you do?" But he didn't respond, just whispered over and over. She said she'd never stop. Kara turned her flashlight. Another set of footprints, leading away. Barefoot, in snow. Her hands started to shake. That's when she noticed the thing tucked into Seth's coat pocket, peeking out like it wanted to be found. She pulled it out. It was the same photo, But this time, Kara's face was scratched out, the other woman's face circled, and on the back, a single sentence. "You should have never come here." A branch cracked behind her. She turned. There was no one there, but when she looked back at the snow, the message was gone, just flat, clean snow. And Seth, he was no longer kneeling. He was gone. The snow was silent again, too silent. Kara's breath came in short gasps, her eyes darting around the clearing. Her flashlight beam shook in her hand, jerking. From tree to tree, bush to bush, branch to bare, snow-laced branch, Seth was gone. 1 second kneeling in blood, the next vanished into thin air, and the message carved into the snow, "I told you she'd come," was now nothing but smooth, undisturbed whiteness, like it had never existed. Like none of this was real, but the cold on Kara's skin. The blood on her hands, the picture still crumpled in her fist, all real. She took one step back, then another, a twig cracked. Kara spun around. Nothing. But something wasn't right. The woods around her felt heavy, like they were holding their breath. Watching, then she saw them. Footprints, not hers, not Seth's, bare feet, in the snow, and they weren't frozen in place. They were fresh, leading away from the clearing, toward the ravine. She followed. The descent. The trail led her down, a sloping path behind the cabin. The snow here was deeper, untouched by animals or hikers. Only those bare footprints marked the way, each one looking impossibly precise, as if whatever left them had floated more than walked. Kara's mind flickered back to the photo. The woman, in Seth's arms, the same woman whose face had been circled obsessively. Who was she? Was she here? And what did Seth mean when he said, she said she'd never stop? Her foot slipped. She caught herself against a frozen tree trunk, heart slamming in her chest. The flashlight nearly fell from her hand. She caught it, and when she lifted it again, the beam landed on something, fabric, caught on a branch, a white nightgown, torn, stained. She reached for it. The cold wasn't just on her fingers now. It was inside her, like it had crept through her skin, into her bones, settling in her spine. A whisper rode the wind. "You always take what's mine." Kara ran. Back to the cabin, she slammed the door shut behind her and threw the bolt. Her breath fogged the air. As she turned in frantic circles, she was alone, but it felt like someone else was already inside. She checked the bedroom, the attic hatch, even the crawl space under the floorboards. Nothing, until tap, tap, tap. She froze. It was coming from the window. Very slowly, Kara approached it. Her heart thudding like a war drum, she pulled the curtain back. No one. But on the glass, pressed against the outside, was a bloody handprint, and beneath it, carved into the frost, "She was mine first." Who was she? Kara scrambled to the bookshelf. The photo had been hidden in one of the cabin's old hunting books. She remembered the title now, "Whispers Between Pines." She tore it off the shelf, flipped through, then paused. There, tucked deep in the back pages, was something. Held an old, brittle newspaper clipping, yellowed and fragile. Local woman found dead after missing for 2 weeks. Body discovered near McCullen Ravine. Her name was Lena Whitmore. She had been staying with a man, last seen alive, at this very cabin. Kara stared in horror at the photo printed next to the article. It was the same woman from the picture, the one in Seth's arms, the one who wasn't supposed to exist, the one who had died 31 years ago. Seth's secret. The front door creaked open. Kara jumped, grabbing a fire poker, but it was Seth, soaked in sweat, pale, breathing hard, a smear of blood down the side of his neck. "Kara," he gasped, I didn't know she would come back." Kara took a shaky step toward him. "Seth, what did you do?" He fell to his knees. "She was my uncle's fiancée before he died. I found his journals here, Years ago, I thought she was just a story, some twisted mountain legend. Kara's voice was barely a whisper. She's not a story, Seth. She wanted me to bring someone here, he said, choking. She made me see her, made me feel things I didn't want to feel. She said if I brought someone I cared about, she'd let me go. His eyes met hers. I brought you. Kara's stomach turned. You brought me here to feed me to her? I didn't think she was real, he shouted. I thought I was losing my mind. But then that night, I saw her, in the mirror, in the trees. She told me what to do. Kara backed away, tears stinging her face. You used me. I'm sorry, he sobbed. But we have to go now, before the lights went out. Darkness falls, total black, then the sound of the wind howling, and underneath it, a soft voice. You broke your promise, Seth. Kara grabbed his hand. Where's the key to the snowmobile? Seth didn't move. He was staring into the hallway, eyes wide, mouth open, and then he whispered, She's in the house. Kara turned, just in time to see a flicker of white move past the bedroom door, and then a low hum. A woman's voice, singing, a lullaby, the escape. They bolted for the back door. Kara fumbled with the latch. Seth shoved it open, and cold air blasted inside. They ran toward the shed. The snowmobile was buried, half frozen. Seth yanked the tarp. Kara dug through the shelf for the key. Found it. She turned and screamed. Lena was standing 5 feet away, barefoot, white gown, pale face, black, empty eyes. Seth stepped in front of Kara. Take me, he begged. Leave her. I came back. Just like you wanted. Lena tilted her head and then smiled. Slow, strange, broken. I already have you both. Kara's final choice without thinking, Kara jumped onto the snowmobile. Seth, come on. But he didn't move. His eyes were locked on Lena's. Tears were pouring down his cheeks. She won't let me leave, he said. She said I belong to her now. You don't, Kara screamed. You belong to yourself. You always did. Lena reached out, touched Seth's chest, and in that moment, Kara saw him change, like something left him, or something else entered. He turned to her, smiled, but it wasn't his smile. Run, Kara, he whispered, and then charged her. Kara hit the gas. The snowmobile lurched forward. She swerved past him, heartbreaking, and took off into the blizzard, wind slicing at her skin. Behind her, the cabin disappeared into the white. But over the roar of the engine, she heard it. The lullaby, still playing, still echoing through the trees. And beneath her coat, in her pocket, the photo was burning hot. She pulled it out. It had changed. Now there were 3 people in the picture, Seth, Lena, and Kara, all smiling, and on the back a new message. Welcome home. The wind was a living thing. It screamed through the trees like it was mourning something. Kara leaned into the snowmobile, eyes nearly frozen shut, every part of her body stinging from the cold. She didn't know how long she'd been driving. 10 minutes, an hour, but the worst part? It felt like she wasn't moving at all. Same trees, same slope, same twisted branch overhead, like she was trapped in a snow globe someone kept shaking. Her fingers tightened on the throttle. No, I'm not dying out here. She looked down again at the photograph in her pocket, the one that should have shown. Only Seth and Lena, but now it showed 3 people, Seth, Lena, and Kara, all smiling, and written on the back, still in that same scrawled handwriting, welcome home. Lost in the loop, when she finally let off the gas, Kara was shivering so hard her teeth chattered. The trees around her stood in perfect silence. No birds, no wind, just her heartbeat thudding in her ears. And that's when she saw it. The cabin. Directly ahead, the same slanted roof, same crooked porch rail, same broken lantern swinging in the wind. No, 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 she whispered. She had driven in a full circle, or something had brought her back. She stepped off the snowmobile and nearly collapsed. Her legs were ice, her boots soaked. The storm was still rising behind her, making it impossible to see more than 10 feet ahead. She was running out of options, but the cabin, it wasn't safe. Not anymore. And Seth wasn't Seth anymore. The journal, instead of going back inside, Kara ran around to the back. There was a trap door. She'd seen it the first night. Half covered in snow and nailed shut, she grabbed the fire axe still wedged in the woodpile. 1 hit, 2, 3, crack. The wood split. She pried it open and climbed down into the crawl space. It stank of mold, rot, and something older. She clicked. On her flashlight, the walls were stone and dirt. The space was barely tall enough to sit up, but something had clearly lived here, or still did. There were scratch marks along the walls, and tucked in the back inside an old ammo box was a leather-bound journal. She flipped it open. Inside were pages and pages of the same name, written over and over. Lena Whitmore. Lena Whitmore. Lena Whitmore. Then on a later page, a different hand, shakier, more desperate. She said she needed love to survive. She said she'd go back to sleep if I brought her someone. I gave her my wife, but she still comes back. I should have burned the house down. At the bottom of the page, if you're reading this, it's already too late. The eyes in the woods. When Kara climbed out, she noticed it immediately. The woods were watching. She couldn't see them, not clearly, but she felt them. Dozens of eyes, all just beyond the tree line, as if the forest had gathered to witness something. And then the lullaby started again. But this time, it was closer, and more melodic, and coming from behind her, she turned. Lena, standing by the shed, face pale as frost, mouth open, still singing that haunting melody, and next to her, Seth. But his eyes weren't his. They were black, void-like, empty. Kara stumbled backward. "You don't have to do this," she screamed. "Let him go." Lena smiled, a slow, unnatural smile, and then whispered, "You loved him, that's why you're perfect." The truth. Suddenly, it all snapped into place, the blood in the snow, the whisper in her ear. The photo, changing. It was never just Lena. This place, the woods, the cabin, even the storm, wasn't haunted by a ghost. It was a trap, a memory loop, a feeding ground, a curse kept alive by sorrow and betrayal, and the only way it survived was by repeating the same story over and over again. Love, betrayal, sacrifice. The woman who died in heartbreak, and the man who offered someone else to replace her. Kara was never just a victim. She was fuel. A plan in fire. She had one match left. A waterproof one Seth had packed in his emergency kit. She also had the journal and a flask of old whiskey left in the basement. She ran back to the shed, doused the wooden beams inside, and shoved the journal deep into the rafters. Then she struck the match. The flame took instantly. The dry wood crackled, sparks jumping like angry insects. Kara backed away, coughing as the fire caught the roof. Seth and Lena just stood there watching, and that's when Seth spoke. She said if I gave her someone else, I could leave. But no one leaves, Kara, not really. Kara's voice cracked. Then we burn together. The fire spreads. The fire wasn't normal. It moved too fast, like it wanted to consume everything. Within minutes, the shed was an inferno. Kara watched. The flames jumped to the porch, then lick up the sides of the cabin like they knew the way, like they'd done this before. Seth and Lena, they didn't run. They just stood in it, arms around each other, smiling. And when the roof finally collapsed, Kara saw them for what they truly were. Shadows, not people. Echoes of pain, still playing their parts, still feeding the story. The vanishing Kara stumbled back toward the woods, away from the smoke and heat. She didn't look back. She didn't stop until she reached the edge of the clearing. And then she collapsed. Everything went black. The hospital. When she woke, she was in a white room. Beeping machines. Warm blankets. The smell of antiseptic. A nurse leaned over her. "You're lucky," she said softly. "A ranger found you passed out near the trailhead. Said the snowmobile tracks were nearly gone." Kara tried to speak, Her voice was barely audible. "The cabin?" The nurse frowned. "What cabin?" Kara's eyes fluttered. "The one at McCullen Ravine." The nurse hesitated, then said gently, "Sweetheart, there hasn't been a cabin there since the fire. 31 years ago." Final twist later that night, when Kara was alone, an officer came in to take her statement. He was kind, calm, patient, until he pulled something from his coat pocket, a photograph. "We found this near you," he said. "No, what it is," Kara took it. It was the same photo, but now there were only two people in it, Kara and Lena. Seth was gone, and scribbled on the back, in the same handwriting, "She kept her promise. Now it's your turn." She kept her promise. Now it's your turn. Kara stared at the photograph in her trembling hands. Just her and Lena now, smiling, like they were sisters, or worse, like they belonged together. Seth was gone. Erased. The men she loved never existed. No, that couldn't be right. She remembered him, his voice, his eyes. The stupid joke he always made when her hands were cold. But when she asked the nurse again, when she begged the officer to go back to the ravine with her, they all said the same thing. "There's nothing there but snow." Kara wasn't crazy, but something wanted her to believe she was. 2 weeks later, Kara checked out of the hospital on a grey, sleeting morning. The world looked different now, quieter, colder. She didn't go home. She drove east, following the highway with no plan except one: find out the truth. Every town along the way, she stopped and asked the same question. "Do you know anything about a cabin fire in McCullen Ravine? About a woman named Lena Whitmore?" She got blank stares, shrugs. An old man at a diner said, "I remember hearing something long time ago. Girl burned alive in a love triangle. Or maybe she burned the other two. Depends who you ask. But in one small library, tucked between old records and forgotten town histories, Kara found it. A black and white newspaper clipping, dated 1993. The forgotten tragedy. Local woman dies in suspicious fire. Lena Whitmore, 29, was found deceased after a blaze consumed a remote cabin north of McCullen Ravine. Whitmore had recently returned to the property after separating from her husband, Richard Whitmore, amid allegations of infidelity. Authorities believe she may have set the fire herself. Her body was never recovered. No mention of Seth, no mention of Kara, just Lena, a woman betrayed, alone, consumed by grief. The fire didn't kill her, the story did. And now somehow, Kara had been dragged into the same loop of pain. The return, Kara knew what she had to do. She rented a snowmobile and headed back toward McCullen Ravine, alone. This time, she wasn't looking for an escape, she was looking for closure. When she reached the edge of the forest, the air changed. Same as before. The storm came out of nowhere. The wind whispered her name. The trees looked older than they should, and ahead, where the cabin once stood, was nothing but blackened earth. But the second she stepped into the clearing, it was all back. The cabin, the shed, the porch light, like it had never burned. Inside the memory, this time she didn't run. She walked inside. The cabin looked just as it had that first night. Too warm, too perfect. And there they were, Seth and Lena, standing by the fire, arms wrapped around each other, like a photograph frozen in time. Kara stepped forward. "You don't need me anymore." Seth didn't speak. Lena did. "There always has to be three." "No," Kara said firmly. "There only has to be truth." She pulled out the journal she'd taken from the crawl space, now wrapped in cloth to keep it safe. Then she dropped it on the floor between them. "You wanted your story to be remembered, fine. Let's tell it the way it really happened. The real story." Lena turned, her eyes flickering, voice shaking. "He promised he loved me. Then he brought her. Her? Kara? No." Suddenly, Kara saw it all. The original woman Seth had brought decades ago, before the fire, before the legend. Someone like Kara, maybe someone exactly like her. It wasn't about love, it was about sacrifice. Lena had died believing she was replaced, and her pain became a curse, one that fed on love and betrayal. "I'm not him," Kara whispered. "And you're not the villain." Lena's face flickered, and for the first time she looked human, tired, grieving. "The offer. You can end it," Kara said. "You just have to let go." Lena stared at her, eyes filling with something ancient and sad. "What if I forget him? What if I forget I was ever loved?" Kara stepped closer. "Then maybe you finally rest. The final choice." The cabin shook. Wind screamed through the windows. The walls groaned like they were about to collapse. Seth turned toward Kara. "I tried to stop it," he said softly. "But I loved you. That made you the next piece." And then he smiled. Not the shadow version, not the puppet, the real Seth, the man she remembered. "I'm sorry, Kara." And with that, he stepped back into the fire. Lena reached out for him, and the moment their fingers touched, the room erupted in white light. The morning after Kara woke in the snow, no cabin, no Seth, no Lena, just ashes. Real this time, and silence. She walked back to the trailhead, the world somehow lighter. The storm had passed. The air was clear, and this time, no one stopped her. 1 year later, Kara moved across the country. She never told anyone the full story. They wouldn't believe it. But she wrote it down. Every detail, every twist, every name. And then one day she left that journal on a park bench in a quiet town far away. Inside, she wrote one final note. She wasn't a monster. She was just a woman who died waiting for someone to remember she mattered. Sometimes ghosts don't need to be hunted or feared. Sometimes they just need to be heard, to be known, to be seen for who they were before the tragedy, not just what they became after. And sometimes the only way to survive a story like that is to make sure no one ever has to repeat it. Why are there boots sticking out of its stomach? It was a question Mason should never have had to ask, but in that frozen, silent yard, surrounded by thick pine trees and untouched snow, that's exactly what he said when he saw the snowman. A snowman that definitely hadn't been there the night before. A snowman with real boots buried in the base, and the faint outline of something, someone, stuffed inside. A cabin in the woods. Mason, 28, had rented the remote cabin in Vermont for one reason: to heal. He'd spent the last year recovering from a brutal divorce. His wife had cheated, drained his savings, and worst of all, had kept his dog. He didn't want revenge, he wanted silence, snow, solitude, and for the first 3 days the cabin delivered. He built fires, read old books, and ignored the buzzing of his phone, until that fourth morning when he stepped outside with his coffee and saw the snowman standing just 10 feet from his porch. The snowman, it wasn't cheerful. No hat, no scarf, no smiley face, just 3 large snowballs stacked uneasily, and a lump where the stomach should have been round. A lump that pushed outward like something was pressing from the inside. Then Mason saw it, 2 black boots sticking out near the bottom, not part of the snowman. Inside it, the police. He called 911. They arrived fast despite the snow. 2 officers, bored, skeptical, and unimpressed. The younger one, Officer Ramirez, poked the snowman with a stick. "Probably a prank," he said. "Kids bury stuff all the time." But when they kicked apart the base, they found a sock. Bloody one, attached to a frozen, pale foot. The body, it was a man, mid-30s, blonde, frostbitten fingers curled into fists. Dead at least 2 days, no ID, no wallet. But strangest of all, his eyes were open wide with terror, and his lips had been sealed shut with something waxy. The police took Mason's statement and taped off the yard. "Don't leave town," they told him, like he had anywhere else to go. The night visitor that night, Mason couldn't sleep. He kept replaying it over and over. Why would someone hide a body inside a snowman? Why here? At 3:41 a.m. he heard something outside. Crunch, crunch, snow. Footsteps. He jumped up, heart hammering, and peeked through the frosted window. Nothing, until he looked again. A new snowman stood across the yard, smaller, thinner, built under the pine trees. This one had a face, and it was smiling. The dream, or not. Mason locked all the doors and stayed up until dawn. He must have dozed off, because when he opened his eyes again, it was daylight. He ran to the window. The second snowman was gone, but in its place, something even more disturbing. A line of footprints, leading from the woods right up to his front porch and back. The journal later that day, police returned. They'd ID'd the body. His name was Lyle Kent, local, missing for 5 days, former caretaker of the cabin, and a history of mental illness, arrested. Once for claiming something under the snow was trying to replace people. Mason asked for more details, but they wouldn't share much. So he searched the cabin. Under the floorboards in the bedroom closet, he found an old leather-bound journal. Inside, Lyle's handwriting. Dozens of pages, and one horrifying entry. They come when the air is still. When the snow doesn't crunch, they wear your face, and they freeze you from the inside out. The theory: Lyle believed in something called the Hollow Ones, creatures that hid inside snow, watching, waiting. They didn't kill outright. They copied. They'd take your shape, your voice, even your memories. And when they were ready, they'd replace you, leave your real body in the snow, usually inside something harmless, like a snowman. The phone call. That night, Mason's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered. Don't trust anyone who knocks after dark. It was a whisper, male, strained. Then the line went dead. He didn't sleep at all. He watched from the window, and sure enough, around 2 a.m., he saw movement near the trees, a figure dragging something, then another snowman, the stranger. By morning, it was still there. This one had arms, real ones, pale and bruised, sticking out at crooked angles. Mason called the police again, but this time they didn't come. Instead, a single man in uniform knocked on the door at 11 a.m., said he was Officer Ramirez. But Mason noticed something. Off no badge, wrong boots, his voice slower than before. And when Mason offered him coffee, the man winced. Like the heat hurt. I think I'll wait outside, he said, then just stood there in the snow, smiling. The escaped Mason didn't wait. He packed his bag, grabbed the journal, and climbed out the bathroom window. He hiked 2 miles down the trail, through deep snow, lungs burning. Finally reached a gas station and called his friend Harper, a reporter from Boston. She picked him up and drove him straight to the city. He never went back for his stuff. 2 weeks later, Harper dug into the case. What she found was chilling. There were 5 deaths connected to that cabin in the last 15 years, all in winter, all involved people going missing, being found days later in strange positions, inside snowbanks, hanging from trees, one even embedded in a frozen lake. No one was ever arrested, and in every report, witnesses claimed to have seen the same thing before it happened, a snowman, where one didn't belong. The footage Harper installed a trail cam outside the cabin using a friend in law enforcement. After 5 days of stillness, it finally captured something. At 3:17 a.m., a figure emerged from the woods. It was wearing Mason's face, same jacket, same walk. It moved to the middle of the yard, knelt in the snow, and began to build, piece by piece, a snowman with real hands. The truth: Mason didn't speak for 3 days. When he finally did, he asked only one question. If that thing has my face, who's to say I'm the real me? Harper didn't know what to say. She still doesn't, because the man she dropped off at the cabin that morning had a small scar above his eyebrow. The one who came back doesn't. Final lesson: winter doesn't just freeze the earth, it hides things. old griefs, lost souls, and sometimes they're creatures that don't belong. They blend in, pretend, mimic, until you stop noticing what's off. A smile too wide, a voice too slow, a snowman that shouldn't be there. So if you ever wake up in winter and see one standing in your yard, don't go outside. And whatever you do, don't wave back. If he's standing outside, then who just called me from his number? Begging for help? Harper froze. The voice on the phone was Mason's, same tone, same way of saying her name. But the man standing outside her apartment window, the one waving at her in the snow, was also Mason. Same face, same jacket, same scar, now faint but definitely there. Only one of them could be real, and if the call was from inside the city, then what the hell was outside her window? 1 week earlier, after fleeing the Vermont cabin, Mason had stayed silent, barely ate, didn't sleep. Harper watched him unravel, unsure if it was trauma or something darker. He kept whispering about the other me, about dreams, where he watched himself smile while digging a grave, about how he'd wake up with snow on his boots. Maybe I never left, he told her once. Maybe that thing followed me. At first, Harper thought it was PTSD, until she found another snowman, this time outside her apartment. The footprints it had rained the night before, no snow in the forecast. But that morning, Harper opened her blinds. And there it was, perfectly built, carrot nose, rock buttons, and Mason's old Red Sox cap on its head, and around it, no footprints, like it had appeared out of nowhere. The call at 4:13 p.m., her phone rang, Mason's number. But he was asleep on her couch, she answered. Harper, it's not me there with you. Please, don't let it touch you. Click. She stared at the man on the couch, his eyes opened. Who was that? He asked. She lied. Spam. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The trap that night, Harper set up a camera in her living room. At 3:08 a.m., Mason got up, stood in the hallway for 6 minutes, still, silent, then walked to the back door, opened it, walked out barefoot, and returned 22 minutes later, covered in snow. Hands blue, smiling. Harper pretended to sleep, but she knew that wasn't Mason anymore. The real one. She tracked the second phone number. It pinged from a gas station an hour outside the city. She drove fast. Inside, in the corner near the vending machine, huddled in a hoodie and shaking, was Mason, gaunt, filthy, eyes wide. He looked up and sobbed. I tried to call, it got to me, but I got out. She dropped to her knees. So, if he was here, then who? The hell had she been living with for a week? The story comes together. Mason told her everything. He'd fled the cabin, but made it only halfway to town. Snow hit hard. He collapsed in a ditch, and then he saw it. Something rise from the white. It wore. His face, it smiled, then spoke in his voice. He blacked out. When he woke up, he was inside a wooden box, buried. He clawed out, barely survived, and made it to a gas station. Someone else, someone wearing his skin, had gone back in his place, and she had let it. In the thing, inside, Harper rushed home, Mason beside her, but the apartment was empty. No fake Mason, no sign of a break-in, except on the living room table, a single snowflake, perfectly formed, not melting, and a photo of her and Mason, burnt around the edges, his face scratched out. She checked the camera. The footage had been deleted, the pattern. They dove deeper into the history, the journal, police reports, cabin records, every single survivor who left that place either disappeared mysteriously weeks later, claimed to be replaced, or was found frozen, eyes wide, mouth full of snow. One man had even murdered his wife, claiming she wasn't her anymore. The cops wrote it off as psychosis, but Harper now knew it was a pattern, the return. They went back to the cabin, this time with cameras, gasoline, and shovels. The snow had returned, so had the silence. The cabin door was open. Inside, everything was as they'd left it, except for one thing. On the wall, written in blood. You brought it back. The basement. They discovered a trap door in the kitchen, hidden under a rug. A steep staircase led into a stone cellar. Freezing, stale, dark. They descended with flashlights. What they found was worse than anything imagined. Bodies, 6 of them, all frozen. All wearing faces Harper recognized from missing persons posters. Some had no eyes, some had lips sealed shut with wax. One had a mirror held to its face. The reflection was smiling. The final snowman, when they came back outside, a final snowman was waiting. This one was huge, nearly 8 feet tall, wearing a scarf Harper had lost as a child. The arms, hers. The face, a twisted, icy version of her own. Mason didn't speak. He doused the thing in gasoline and lit a match. The snowman burned, and as it did, they heard it, a scream, high, inhuman, from deep under the snow, ending the curse. They torched the cabin, all of it. Watched the fire consume the trees, the walls, the stairs into the basement. They stayed until the last beam cracked and fell. Then they walked away. Mason turned only once and saw a shape forming in the smoke, tall, smiling, but he didn't stop. 6 months later, Harper wrote the story, changed the names, masked the details. She didn't want fame. She wanted a warning out there. But most people thought it was fiction, just another winter horror tale. Until 3 weeks ago, she received a letter, no return address, inside a photo of her standing outside her apartment, smiling. Except she had no memory of it, and the date, 2 days in the future. Below it, a handwritten note, "You never buried me deep enough." The end.